Years of custom application development using both Java and .NET technologies. Mike started with ODOT in 2004 as a consultant Java developer and hired on as a full-time employee in 2007 to oversee the transition from Java to .NET development at ODOT. Since then, Mike Jordan has served as the solution architect for the software development group, establishing the .NET software development stack used by the department. Over the last year, Mike has transitioned to the role of ServiceNow Delivery Team Solution Architect to assist the team in expanding the custom development aspects of the platform. And with that, Mike Jordan.
All right. Hey, how's everybody doing? Is this thing on? Or am I just that loud? Yeah. Who's from out of town, really? Go ahead. Sorry, I'm just testing the mic. Okay, welcome everybody. I know this is the last session of the day. Almost. And so I'm going to try to get through this. I'm going to talk about some IT architecture, but I thought one of the first things we might want to do is show an example of kind of architecture going wrong. I'm probably going to, let's see if my video plays.
Of a fatal day, and the wind begins to speak with a roar that no man can fail to hear. In a 40-mile-an-hour gale, the center span weaves like a ribbon in a swinging twist that you wouldn't believe possible unless you could see it as you do now. There's an automobile caught on the heaving roadway. The 11,000-ton center span twists and strains the giant cables that support it. Cables of 6,300 wire strands, each 17 inches thick. Out of the danger zone, all stricken spectators are driven to safety as the bridge gyrates like a nightmare high above the river, twisting, turning, curling. The lone motorist is forced to abandon the car. He has but a few minutes in which to save himself. Face to face with fate, his destiny hanging in the balance. Will he heed the last warning or perish with the doomed structure? But he saves himself by seconds. No structure of steel and concrete can stand such a strain. Steel girders buckle and giant cables snap like puny thread. There it goes! Claim it was the use of solid girders. Others differ. The super thrill in...
Go away. Wow. What do you think? Does that seem like a bad situation there for the... You know, when they negotiated the bid on that bridge, it was $11 million back in 1940. And they talked them down to $8 million. Now, to give you perspective, $1 in 1940 was about $18 now, so we're talking like 198 to down to 154 million. That's a $154 million bridge that they just got to start over and redo because of some design flaws that were in it. It really, I don't think it had as much to do with them talking down the price and putting less efficient material on it. I think there was a design all the way from the beginning. But you know, when the bridge was failing, they tried to come in and patch fix it to try to keep it stable. You know, hey, we got a failed thing that we've deployed. Let's see if we can put Band-Aids on it and keep it going. Does that sound familiar by any chance? Does that strike a bell? Now I get technical failure. There. 339,849. This has been a day of numbers. This is a big number. This is the number of IT assets that statewide that ODOT manages. If it plugs in, has an IP address or a license key, or it has an installer, it's in that number somewhere. And we are essentially responsible for it. That's a pretty overwhelming number, I think, for us to basically just kind of cowboy our way through it. So what we basically decided to do was form an architect team, and our purpose is to lead us into success. Our motto here is "We drive tech success." And by drive, we mean that we're going to be solving business problems using IT resources. By tech, we mean we'll use the most current and most appropriate technology that we feel is necessary. And the success part is key. It means that we are always solution-focused. Even when the requirements and the problem is just ugly, we still want to go and say, we want you to succeed. We don't want you to fail, even when it's ugly. This is our crew, a panel of experts. We have representation from the endpoint compute desktop, we have data and integration, we have server storage, GIS, ServiceNow, software development database, across the board. 198 years of collective IT experience that is at the disposal of ODOT for the purposes of strategic IT architecture. We want to get involved in those projects as early as we possibly can. So, when we were forming this team, we had three main goals. One was to build the architect team, and that takes more than just populating the chairs. It takes more than just voluntold a bunch of people to go in the room and say, you're an IT architect now. The other is track one and track two thinking, which is how we kind of described the goals that we have. Track one is where we have projects that are in flight or about to be started, and we want them to come to us so that we can give them some guidance and help navigate them through what it would be like to start an IT project. And then track two is the future thinking, where we're actually looking ahead. We're trying to see what could we have if we could just pretend like the current doesn't exist. The other thing we came up with was this Thursday 8 concept. What we were asking is each member of the architect group to commit 8 hours a day, which in this case happened to be Thursday, to commit that much time per week and get their management to also agree that they were willing to let them step away from their day job for that long of a time and be focused on strategic architecture initiatives. So basically, it's a commitment to be part of the team. And maybe these people all have day jobs. I mean, I ServiceNow, we've got the database folks keeping the lights on with our databases, and basically serving all of Esri, I think, runs on a database really well, right? Let's look at some numbers here. When he started building an IT architect team, I got 20, 834, and 34. Those probably don't mean much to you. No, they are not my measurements, in case you were wondering, although it's close. 20. That's the number of Thursday 8 sessions we've held for our IT architect team. 834 is the number of person hours that we've invested in our Thursday 8 sessions, and 34 is the number of hours of training content that we've provided to the team. This is us building the team. It's investing in bringing them all on the same page because they come from different disciplines across the enterprise. It also involves getting them interacting with the business so that they can learn the different business processes around. 25, 18, and 10, these are lower. That's not the average age of the people on the architect team either. 25, that's the number of project advisory sessions we've held. And this is when business users come to us with a project that they want to run or an initiative that they would like to start, they can come to us at any time, preferably earlier. This is the number of those sessions that we've held with the business. 18 is the number of written recommendations we've given them of steps to help them move forward to be successful. And 10 is the number of different business units that we've interacted with so far. So we aren't just focused on one, we're focused on the enterprise itself. All right, track 2, 9, 11, 24. Oh, somebody changed the numbers on me. All right, 15. That's the number of hours spent on enterprise architectural requirements, where we were basically writing down what we saw as the requirements for an architecture that's scalable, that's stable, that's expandable. 11 hours was spent on a concept called the incubator. And oh, by the way, this phrase is a personal favorite of mine. The incubator is where you go to incubate till you innovate. You basically have an environment where you have access to whatever technology stacks that you want to use. We can provide some templates to make it convenient. You want to spin up some SQL Server database with some .NET Core and maybe IIS web server or an Apache web server, boom, spin it up, try something out. You have an external consulting company working on an app for you, let's give them that space. Let's take an entire copy of our production enterprise database, drop it into this environment because we're going to make it elastic and scalable, and let them have at it. Let them use real data in a real environment so that they're already working production. Let's apply some governance around it, but not from a standpoint of Big Brother watching, but empowering them to be successful. Let's empower them to have a secured application, or an application that is efficient and that's not draining the database resources or the server resources unnecessarily. But at the same time, let's empower these people to innovate. If the solution isn't working, you want to start over, trash it, start another one. Here's another template. Maybe you'd rather have Python, Django, and Apache sitting on top of a MongoDB database. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. 24 hours is the amount of time that we spent in preparing, in working on the ESP architecture, which is basically the event streaming platform. Charles had mentioned that earlier and showed diagrams of that platform. Basically, it's about a new concept for how data can be collected, obviously dealing with the data that's out and that we're getting through the connected vehicle initiatives, but it's more than that. What we found while we were looking into this is that it can change the way we share data across the enterprise and across agencies. You can basically take a SQL database, map it into the event stream and start streaming transactions, and then start putting logic to aggregate that data with analysts, analyzing it and putting machine learning on top of that and basically looking for patterns. The idea there is that the technology exists for agencies to directly take their transactional databases and shove them as events into the cloud and let others work on taking that and turning it into something useful or looking for patterns without really any coding effort on their part. We're basically just plugging into their data streams and collecting their transactions. One more number, big number, 0. 0, is that a good number? I wrote it big, it must be good, right? This is the number of times that the architect group told the users that came to us, no, you can't. We are not an approval committee. That's not what we're about. Our goal is to help the business succeed. It's to guide them in a direction for success. We're not here to say, no, that's silly, you're not allowed to do that. What we're here to do is to help you navigate the really ugly quagmire that is IT projects. It is a quagmire. Trust me, I know. I've been doing this for 22 years. It never gets any better. You know, my favorite thing that happens in IT is when somebody who's never written an application before tells me that I'm taking too long to build it. I love that. It's my favorite thing, especially when I sit there and try to tell them why it's taking so long. Anyway, we're a consultant resource. I want you to use this. We're now going to start, and Simon's going to facilitate a little panel discussion with our other experts here and be open to some questions about the architect group and basically what we do and what the future of our architecture is at ODOT. Simon?
Are you going to do introduction yet, or? Okay. So we'll do our team introductions after we've had time for Q&A. So I guess what I'd like to do is ask the audience if there are any questions regarding the ODOT architecture or anything Mr. Jordan described to you. Is there any question at the top of your mind that you want to ask? We've got a variety of architecture experts here. So we've got Greg from Network, Melanie is analytics and reporting. You want to start with Greg maybe? No. Lavanya, GIS. We got a Noop developer, and we've got Ravi on database, and then Mike Blake, server and storage. So any questions out there? I'll walk the microphone over to you. Is that crickets I hear? Is that a technology stack, the cricket stack? All right. Oh.
I might have missed this.
Hang on.
But what was the overarching goal for creating this committee?
What was the overarching goal for creating the committee? I'm going to let Charles answer that question. We all know the answer. We all know the answer. But when we got together as a team of architects, based on the charge that Charles gave us, we knew that we wanted to drive tech success. We felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect between our organization, DoIT, and the business. And we knew that if we could create an interface whereby divisions and other departments could come and present their technology problems to us early, then we could create more successful projects. We've all heard statistics about why projects fail and things along those lines. You know, not getting requirements, not understanding roles and responsibilities, poor communication, things along those lines. But we wanted to get, Charles empowered us to get a group together so we could get involved early and try to nip those failures in the bud early on. Charles, anything else you want to add to that? Sound good? All right. Belinda, does that help? Anybody else want to add to that from the panel? No? Okay. All right. Anybody else have a question?
How do I start the process for working with the team? Say I come across a technology problem. Do we have a process in place to
That's my architect strip.
So you can contact me, and I can set up a time for you to come in and meet with the architect group. We meet every Thursday, so whatever's convenient for you, and there's no paperwork that you have to provide in advance. It's just come and have an open discussion with us.
And I want to build on that real quick too. You know, Melanie said there's no paperwork to fill out. It's as formal as you want to make it, but we would much rather we just have a conversation. So if you have an idea and you want to talk about it, if there's an application that's been driving you crazy and you think there's a better way to do it, by all means, come and have a conversation with us. We meet every Thursday, and it's super simple to get on our calendar. If you've got diagrams, bring them. If you know how to use a whiteboard and a pen, draw it up on a whiteboard. We are happy to meet with the business, or even folks out in the technology side to talk about solutions. So we try to make it as simple as possible. Anybody else? I've got questions. I've got a list of questions here that they're common questions, but anybody else want to ask a question of the architects?
You know, one of the things I'd like to throw in there is it's an informal meeting, and I can't emphasize enough that whole we aren't an approval committee, because when we first started out, it was like, you'd have people coming and said, yes, and then I did the BRS, yes, and then my WBS, and the end, like they were giving us a book report and asking us to grade it, when all we were looking for is a conversation and a back and forth. It's not formal. You don't have to have any documents. All you have to do is have an idea, and we can give you some direction. We might not have the perfect answer for you immediately, but we can certainly steer you in the right direction to get you that kind of information. So by all means, we're basically an open resource to you. If you have some kind of technology needs, or you have some strategy that you would like to explore, come talk to us. We would be happy to find out what it is what your pain points are from a technology perspective.
Okay. Melanie, a question for you. What are some of the common GQL things that people come and ask us about?
Common GQL questions. Is it going away? No, it's not going away. We're just adding to it with Power BI and other options to give you a variety. Power BI is more for dashboarding. Smaller data sets, GQL has the ad hoc capabilities, and we do offer training in all of them. So if you are interested, we have a Power BI training coming up in the last week in October. So if you're interested, let me know.
Any questions about GQL? Did that trigger anything? No? Mr. Perkins, network expert extraordinaire. What things are we doing to improve the network?
Some new things we're doing is we're implementing a solution called SD-WAN, or software-defined WAN, which allows us to better manage our wide area network. Right now, when a router switch, new location, upgrades, all those kind of things have to happen. We have to either go to those sites to upgrade the hardware, go to those sites to physically upgrade the software, those kind of things. But with SD-WAN, we'll be able to manage the software. We'll be able to put templates in place for those so that those routers and switches and things like that are very consistent across our enterprise, instead of, again, more of a manual process where we're configuring those and throwing a text file down. Yeah, we use templates right now, kind of thing, where it's a basic template, but people could change those. Little things could creep into the configuration and things like that. With SD-WAN, it's a more of a centralized management console that allows us to push those changes and build very standardized configurations on the wide area network, almost like a Citrix or something like that. So that's one of the new technologies that we're using to try to make our jobs easier and work smarter and not harder.
What about on the security front, Greg? What are we doing there? What have we done recently to make things more secure?
Also, yeah, on the wide area network side in our network, we are doing some things to secure our network. So we've taken and we've segregated the traffic network. As you know, the traffic network sitting on the side of the highway. There's devices on the side of this highway that have IP addresses, and those things are very. They can. There's some vulnerabilities there, right? Somebody could break into those boxes, connect to our network, those kind of things. We are doing things like shutting ports down and all these kind of things. But if you have physical access to a network device, it can be difficult to secure that device. So what we've done is that is somewhat of a weakness, right? That can be exploited. And we know that. So what we've done is we made a separation of the traffic network from the ODOT network. So if you do plug in, or you do somehow a sophisticated, more, attack physically connect to an ITS device or whatever, you won't have access to to the DoT databases and some of our more secure functionalities and servers and databases and applications and things like that, because we have a firewall that separates those things, and we only allow, we've got predefined, things that are allowed through that firewall. It's not like a lot of times a firewall where we might have a lot of different, rules and things like that. We went through every application that traffic might use that actually sits on the ODOT network, and we only allow that specific traffic to come through our network. So we've made a physical separation of the traffic network from the ODOT network to to better secure the ODOT and ITS networks. So that's something we've recently done. So.
Any thoughts on that from the audience? Any additional questions for Greg on network and security? Nope. Okay. Ravi, I'll ask you a question. What's happening in the database space?
So currently we have a lot of vendor databases that we manage, maybe around 40 to 50 databases. And we're planning to move them to cloud on Azure Cloud. We already have a couple of data warehouses that are sitting in the cloud, like TAMDST and Tismo databases are sitting in the cloud. which we access on a daily basis for running a lot of reports. And maybe in next couple of years, I think we'll see all the databases to be going to the cloud, and that would definitely improve the performance of the databases, and also scalability-wise, the cloud databases are much more efficient, and they are vertically scalable. So that's what is happening in database world.
I'll ask you a question because I'm a security guy, right? Not a trick question. So, so what about databases in the cloud? I mean, people have a tendency to be leery about cloud technologies and pushing everything out to the cloud. What are your thoughts on databases in the cloud?
Actually, the databases in the cloud are more secured than on-prem. As the security, they have a lot of compliance with federal and state government policies that been approved by Azure and also Google and Amazon's. So they have better security than online on-prem databases.
So I would piggyback on that as well. Depending on the service level that you get and the number of devices you would spin up in that instance, you're also, you get more resiliency from a denial of service perspective. So you get more horsepower and more bandwidth behind those databases. So Lavanya, GIS space, what's happening there? What's cool?
So GIS, as everybody know, like, it answers the science of where. That's Esri's tagline too. So with tech services, we have been like collecting all the data sets like assets. We wanted to locate them onto our network, which would be helpful for analyzing those assets together when it is all falling onto our LRS network. So this would help us analyze these assets and maximize our ROI based on what kind of work management we do in that project area. TAM DST tool, that's another tool that we have started implementing in tech services, which helps the managers, ODOT managers, to analyze these assets and also also analyze the historical performances. The other good example where GIS might come helpful would be the Drive Ohio project, where GIS services and geospatial data is more important for communication between cars or any road location conditions, between the kind of traffic signals and the cars and etc. It's GIS is what ODOT is looking at the base, and improving our assets and how we can spend our money efficiently. And that's where we are looking forward to work on the GIS side. Yeah.
Any questions for Lavanya on GIS? All right. So, Mr. Blake, a question for you, sir. So, it's true that OIT manages our servers, right?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. He says with some hesitation. So, do we really need a server and storage team then if OIT's? Uh-oh. I'll give you the microphone. This was a staged question.
Yeah, well, actually, maybe people think we have migrated to OIT. We have migrated quite a bit, but we are still migrating. We started in 2012 with email, and we've still got like 55 terabytes of data to migrate, file storage data to migrate. We've still got a good chunk of our enterprise backups, and that's not even talking about, like currently we manage Active Directory authentication services, ADFS for federated, authentication, and at some point that's all going to get migrated. We'll all be in one giant ID domain. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. Because things kind of are shifting a little bit. That's kind of what makes it exciting. There's a lot of stuff we do on a day-to-day basis to keep the lights running. We're also moving from most of our servers, over 400 servers from Windows 2008 to Windows 2016, because Windows 2008, which most of our stuff is running on, or was running on, goes out of support at the end of the year, actually in the middle of January. And Alan Grubb over here on the server team is spearheading that, I mean, that's a lot of servers to move. OIT isn't doing that for us. We have to build new servers, migrate all the data, and you can imagine moving all the applications. We work with the Anoop a lot in the software application team. So there is a lot of stuff. And then as far as the future goes, there's always going to be a need for infrastructure, even if it's in the cloud. And it probably will be in the cloud, and that still needs to be managed. Like for the continuous improvement and continuous development, Ganesh, who's on our team, is he still here? He's building the Docker environment, which is going to be the infrastructure for that type of development. So, and then as far as the, event streaming platform, that's going to have a lot of infrastructure that's going to have to be managed. So, does that answer your question?
I think it does.
All right.
How's Docker going to change the way we do things, Mike?
Well, with Docker, you can, and I'm not an expert on it by any means, but the nice thing about it is it allows you to scale out as you need more stuff. Like, for example, on Buckeye Traffic, we've got 4 pretty beefy servers, and Buckeye Traffic and Oga, they're both currently on the same environment. And so, like, each one has, like, I think 16 processors, 64 gig of RAM, and a lot of resources. And the reason we have that is for a few days in the heaviest peak of snow and ice when everybody's hitting the site trying to find out what's going on. The rest of the time, it's only using like 20% of the resources. With Docker, you could actually, if the application was implemented on that, then you could just have it only using 20%, that amount of processing. Then when it needs more, it just spins up more instances of it. And then it just can handle the load. So, that's one big advantage of it, yeah. Plus the ability to, well, from a software development standpoint, and Anoop probably knows more about this than me, but, you just can, like the Tesla updates, I mean, you can just continuously improve and deploy stuff, and then if something goes wrong, it's really easy to roll back with Docker. And so, yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
Any questions for Mr.
Just
Blake?
hear about the universal SQL driver.
Does anybody want to hear about the universal SQL driver? I think I heard crickets.
I do.
Go ahead. Universal SQL drivers?
Sorry, this is kind of a running joke here, but the idea is that one of the key pain points that we have is data integration issues. And I think the event streaming architecture can solve a lot of those problems. But a lot of our systems communicate over SQL connections. The company DataDirect actually provides both an SDK as well as existing drivers that you can install that connect to multiple disparate data sources, from REST API endpoints to SQL Server, Oracle, and they can actually expose the schema as a consolidated whole, meaning that you can basically merge data across disparate data sources through a single driver connection without having to do that work yourself. So the potential there could be for us to be able to use that as an interim data integration scenario. Oh, I don't know, like, say, making SMS and REMS talk to each other, perhaps. Just, saying.
Crazy talk. Who wants to talk about CI/CD pipeline? You want to take that, Anoop?
Hi there. Those of you who doesn't know me, I'm Anoop Alex. I represent the software production under IT. Just before I answer the question, I just want to update you all about what currently goes on under our group. We have a couple of applications being developed, which includes RealOS, Current Bill, Environment, and in parallel, as Mike was saying, we are also working to migrate all of our apps that are running under Windows 2008 servers onto 2016 and 2019 servers. And these range from apps back from early 2000s. So we support almost, the last time I checked with my boss Eugene here, we support around 72 web applications and at least, I would say all put together, the web applications and scheduled tasks around 100 some. And most of our development team is actually assigned to projects, so we have very, very few people working on the maintenance and keeping the lights on. Now, recently we had a for our source control, we use, we had been using a TFS, and recently we got an upgrade, and now we are in a position to go into this CI/CD, which is a continuous integration and continuous deployment, and this is one of the foundation stones for us to get to the microservices that we are talking about. Because without this, basic foundation stones, these are not possible. We won't be able to reach that goal of reaching the microservice world. Now, talking about continuous integration is, we as a development team will be checking in code, and as we check in our code in TFS or in the Azure DevOps it's called now, so there is an option for it to automatically trigger a build. So if someone is checking in a code and the build is going to fail, it runs through, every check-in of the code will trigger a build which makes sure that we did not really break the code, and in fact it actually goes through all of the test cases and everything. In that way it makes sure that how much, we did not break the code, and also how much of a test code coverage we get through these test cases. So that is one greatest advantage, that make sure that every check-in is being made sure that things are not broken. Now, our biggest challenge is that on the infrastructure side, we have very few resources. So it is very critical that for an agile kind of development to go through, we should not be reliant on the server team or the infrastructure team to deploy our apps. It should be, because every time we involve them, we are taking away their time and a lot of communication back and forth. And what the CD part of the continuous deployment offers is, once you trigger a check-in, it can automatically trigger the build, and in addition to that, it can release this to the dev environment if you want. Now, from the dev environment, it can, if you want, it can automatically deploy to the test environment. Or if you want an approval person in between for it to go from dev to test, so it can be done that way. Now, if the code wants to be moved from test environment to UAT, the QA is the QA team is the one who can approve, hey, this code is now ready for deployment to UAT environment. So we do not have to involve the infrastructure team at all, and it can all be triggered and gated. So we are at an advantage there for a faster turnaround time. Now, as far as the future, as I see, now once that we have this environment, now I think we are having the Docker environment. So probably our next step should be containerizing apps to be able to scale them as much, as per the demand. Now, once we master the containerization is only when we can start thinking about the microservices world. So that is how I see the roadmap of ours going to be. I think I took way more time than everyone wanted.
That's really good. Yeah. Another thing in the CD part of that pipeline is, from a security perspective, most of you know that I and a couple other people are responsible for scanning web applications before they can be deployed. Well, with the CI/CD pipeline, you can create policies that define when code can be deployed, and you can have a scanner that's properly configured be called in your pipeline. So instead of coding like crazy for 6 months and then going, oh, snap, I guess I should have this scanned, and then finding out that there's a bunch of bugs and then that screws up your timeline, you build that into your pipeline and you do scans more frequently, maybe even on a daily basis. So as you're checking it in, the code's being assessed. And I think that's a huge benefit for everybody, because I love security and I love making sure that we find bugs before we deploy them, but I hate it when it screws up everyone's timeline, because then people are unhappy, and we want to drive tech success. We don't want to slow people down. Any questions about CI/CD pipeline at all? Any questions in general? Mr. Jordan, anything to add? You want to wrap us up?
Sure. I will wrap us up. So above here, I just wanted to show you that we have the contact information displayed. Basically, if you want to communicate, to set up a session with us, you can just send an email to Melanie, and she'll put you on our calendar. You can also see the calendar at the SharePoint portal listed there. And if you could remember that long email address right there, you could send an email to the architect team just to ask us some questions, and we all actually get a copy of that. And I think, at least I don't delete it, I read it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.